And welcome back to Breaking Waves with your host Hana. On today's show, we have a very special guest. He's been on the show twice before and he's received mass feedback for his knowledge and wisdom on the customs, traditions, and histories of Tangata Moana. With an internationally award-winning podcast, The Sounds of the Moana, this has paved a way for a documentary he has recently co-directed and written, The Instruments of the Moana. This is an introductory documentary that explores indigenous sound-producing instruments from a pan-Pacific lens. I'd like to welcome Tau'ili'ili Alpha Maiava. Taiao Manuia Alpha, how are you today?
Hana. I'm feeling very humble this morning.
Love that.
Demure with a T.
Demure. Love that. How have you been?
I've been good, thank you. Living life, just trying to survive. Very hard to survive in my house. My wife is the boss, and second in charge is my two daughters. And then me and my son are pretty much the cleaners. No, we do absolutely no cleaning, but we do the spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
But no, we're good. 2024, it's nearly done.
Nearly done. Yes, exactly. Fast. How's your year been? Reflecting back on this year, what's it been like for you? If there was a word to describe your year, what would it be?
Discovery. It was a year of discovery. And discovery is the same line as learning, same line as growth, right? Because discovery comes in, you either discover on your way down.
That's the best discovery.
Yeah. Or you discover on your way up, or you discover while you're standing in the same place.
Yes.
So I'd say it's been a year of discovery.
Love that. Yeah. And the last time you were on the show, we had you talk about the whangu.
That was years ago, wasn't it?
That was last year.
Oh
man, maybe it's been a tough year for me. It's been a tough year for me, guys.
By the way, how's the year been for you, Hana?
If there was one word to describe my year, it's been learning so much, ups and downs, same as you, learning things through hardship, learning things through successes. But I've had more challenges this year than I have any other year.
Is it wise to suggest that you also discovered your real circle and what it looks like?
Yes.
So you had a discovery year too.
Yes. A blessing. A lot of the work is done for me. So now I know moving forward who are the people who've stood by me, and blessing in disguise. But you have recently written and co-directed a documentary. And what inspired you to become part of this project?
It's a very good question. It's one of those questions, what's the word to say about it? And it's a simple question, but it has a complex answer. And so I'll try and unpack that a little for you. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the Ministry for Culture and Heritage, the government of New Zealand. So they were the ones that provided the support, and they saw I guess they just something different, right? I also like to acknowledge my dear friend Diana Marsh. Diana Marsh was the chief executive of Sounds in the Polynesian Music when we started the project. And so with me, we co-wrote the application together with some other people. Because without those people, MCH would have never received the application. But the whole idea, as you were saying before, it came as an evolution of the Sounds of the Moana podcast. Now, the Sounds of the Moana podcast actually came about because there was a music strategy by Sounds to work with Pacific people in the classical and jazz music scene. Yeah, mainly because Sounds was an organization that was started to service, I wouldn't say white music, but classical music, Eurocentric compositions and things like that. So when they brought me on to start what it looked like to include classical Moana, I mean, we have classical. We're just very colorful in the way we see classical tongue and classical Fiji and beautiful. And so that's how I got on board. And Sounds of the Podcast was pretty much, okay, now that we're come together, how are we going to celebrate us coming together? And I thought about the concept of, we always say in Samoa, like a child birth out of the union. So I thought, let's do a project together. So that's how the Sounds of the Moana came about. But then the question is, well, what the hell are you going to write about? So I had some thinking, and I thought, okay, so if we are 50 plus islands, and the common thread of all of us is the ocean, right? So, and if the ocean, it's like having a language that has little remnants of it in Tonga. You know, we share Tongan words, we share Fijian words, or we each share words. Not It's not Samoan words,
Yes.
but we share words. Yeah. So if the Moana is the mother, then what common instruments that you find in Papua New Guinea that you'll kind of find, because we're all surrounded by this one ocean. And so that's how we discovered the conch. We would call it fofo in Samoa. And what interests me the most was the nose fruit, which is why I came on at that time. Because Fang, when I grew up in Samoa, gone. Well, people talk about it. Yeah, we had lies. Samoans, we just don't want to admit that we lost stuff, right? But we lost. Tongans had the right then to say, oh, we have because they had some practitioners.
Yeah.
We didn't. And then we also focus in on the lali, because those three instruments, wherever you go, whether it's what we now call Micronesia, Melanesia, you'll always find it. They just have different applications, right? So we did the podcast, and, thankfully it took out that award, the New York Festival Radio Awards, which is what they consider the Oscars of podcasting. And then Diana said to me, Alpha, what's next? And I thought, well, I've got a stupid idea. She's like, what is it? Well, if I get all the money, I'll take a film crew. I'll go to every island of the Pacific, because by this time I've learned from doing the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah? And I'm going to capture the origin stories of all of these instruments. And I want to know whether they were created to be musical instruments, or whether musically was like a means to an end, but the instrument was created for something else. And that's why the thing happened. Now, we only managed to visit 7 countries.
Yeah.
But that was the reason why I set out to do that. Now, that's one reason. The second reason is I thought about legacy as a father. And if I'm thinking about legacy as a father, other Pacific people are thinking about legacy as fathers, right? And the legacy of being a father or a parent came out of me and my wife's 100-year plan. See, my wife and I designed, it's not ours. The 100-year plan, everyone's got a 100-year plan. But after living overseas and just accumulating a lot of things we liked, we come to the conclusion that wouldn't it be great if 99% of everything her and I will now commit to build, we will never get to see its fruits. Are we okay with that? And we decided, yes. Why are we okay with that?
I noticed that in your documentary, you're like, even if you're 100 years from now on another planet.
Yes. Now, why is that? Because my kids are about to be grown-ups who's going to impact the world. I can't leave them my house 100 years from today. Somebody might live in my house. But if I were to leave them stories, songs and melodies, it's going to float around for the next, right? So that's was the other empowering factor. And then thirdly, I want to return the power to storytelling. I grew up storytelling. Then at some point now, even our own communities say, hey, where did you hear that? Oh, I heard of it. Yeah, if it's not written down, it's opepelo. What does that mean? It's now a signal that the value proposition of storytelling, oratory narrative, has now left us and gone over to the power of the pen and paper of the papalangi.
Exactly. And that's such a struggle, right? Because usually oral histories are largely discredited if they're not written down on paper. And I find it so sad because even my grandparents passed us knowledge and their histories of ancestry through word of mouth. So when I hear that, it's disheartening for me in a sense.
So that's, and I'm someone who loves stories, right? I grew up in Samoa where there used to be a program by a very, very well-known, established journalist who I think Talanoa is part of his paper or the site. But Apulu Lanspolo. Apulu Lanspolo used to come on radio every night at 8 o'clock. Ole Palolomoa. Ole Ongana Yonisio Tala Mailelano. And he used to tell myths and legends of Gregarian stories, the Arthenians. I think I heard the Minotaur, but in Samoa.
Yeah.
So can you imagine that was way before we had TV? my imagination grew from there.
Mm.
And then the stories of my nana would talk about the ghost stories and all of that. So I have a very well lived experience of the power of oratory. And I think it's also part of the reason why I accredit my imagination as being so wild. Because if all you have is stories, 99% of the rest is up to your mind.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you hear the lion.
Yeah.
So the man came across and he saw a beautiful woman. Your mind just goes, well, I think her beauty, she must have had this eyes, that hair.
Mm.
By the end of it, girl, it probably looked like someone that's gone through a lot of heavy body talk work or whatever, right? But in your head. So that's how my imagination grew. So when I came to Aotearoa and had the chance to do those projects, I let my imagination run wild.
Mm. That's beautiful. And if, you could be doing anything within, because I know you're well versed in Pacific histories and you could literally be doing anything. What's the main theme or message that you're trying to convey with this documentary?
I'm someone that's really big on reminding people just how great a race we are. Right?
Love it.
So you'll hear me say things like, you are the daughter of the greatest navigator that ever lived. We circumnavigated the world. And so let me go back and credit Le Whiongayama Walaivao Emeritus Professor Albert Wentz. So back in the days when I didn't know what I wanted to do, there was a group of us. We used to crash lectures. Because back then at uni, no one cared if you were there or not. Because there's no rows. You just walk into a lecture. We've done a few fashion classes.
Love that.
You know why? Because all the pretty girls, so all these forms are like, hey, okay, kakobolo single, right? So I've been into,
right.
But it was probably funny because they probably wondering, where are those three guys when it came exam time? Right? Because we only turn up just to have a look at some of God's creation at that time. But I remember he used to teach a creative writing class. And he would walk in the beginning of every semester and he would introduce himself. And then he would say, I come from the center of the universe. Some of you know it as Samoa. Right? My people were around. We circumnavigated the world. At the same time, it has now been proven correct that while we were navigating chronologically, Europeans were in the Stone Age. And that blew my mind. Because that has just told me the savage race that they wrote about us, all lies. Because how can I make you feel less about yourself? By writing how great I am. I saw something said that the lion has the greatest roar, but you'll only hear a peep because you're hearing it from the pen of the one watching the lion roar. So those combinations of things. And I grew up in an empowered house. My grandmother who raised me was a Tanuvasa Tamaitai in my village of Nofali. I come from many villages, and Utuali, but I grew up mainly there. So this woman I grew up was a farmer, and she was known for knocking men out who would get drunk and come and disturb our house. I was raised by that woman, right? So I was raised by a mother who was a bookworm. So my environment was very empowered women. So then when I left and acquired, started seeing all these great things about a reminder of how great a race we are, or how great a people we are, right? We are the human race, but tangata ole Moana, I got empowered. And then when you go, and back then, it's Professor Wentz. He was one of the only Pacific professor in white-ass Auckland Uni.
Yeah.
So to have him say those things to these Palangis, you're like, yeah, it is proven then. We were circumnavigating 600 years. Also, and then I went to Malta. In Malta is where they have the International Law School for Maritime. So all the lawyers that will tell you your economic zone cannot go here, you can only fish here, they go to learn from there. In the International Maritime Law School, it is also where they train captains of seafarers. Yeah, there is one subject that's the only subject in the entire curriculum that's named after a race. It's called the Polynesian sailing method. How amazing is that? It's not called Pleiades or Plutos or Aristotle's, right?
Yes.
All the greatest thinkers of the West, not a single one is named after them.
Mm.
But in this particular subject, or it must be a minor course or whatever, the Polynesian sailing method.
Mm.
And what is it? Because one day your va is going to be without power. Well, welcome to how my ancestors did. So they teach that to maritime seafaring captains.
Wow.
How great is that?
That's amazing. I didn't even thank you for sharing that with me today. Mm.
So those were some of the reasons that inspired me. It's identity marker. So all of that comes back to identity marker. What do I mean by that? In these Western societies that we've now called home and built our lives in, America and now Europe, right? You know, New Zealand, Australia, and now we have quite a lot of our communities in Europe and Asia. Out of work, Europe mostly for sports. People, when they see Pacific Islanders, they always expect macho,
Yeah.
the tattoo, the loudness. It's almost like that's the expected behavior of a Pacific Islander. Like that's the identity marker. But we're also scholars. We were healers. We were I just shared about navigating. We navigated while literally everybody else was a Cro-Mag. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but you got the point, right?
Yep.
It's proven. The amount of period chronologically, we were, you know, you hear the legends of the Maoris going to the Kumara from there, whatever. The Tongas were conquering everybody.
Yep.
Come to Samoa, if they needed a wife, honey. You know. And we were just so kind of, here you go, my lord. But you know what I mean? Like we were sailing, we were navigating, we were just doing all of that. And so I wanted to do the doco to show to our youth, who are the future leaders of our community, no matter where you are, that this is a race of where you come from. That these people created these instruments. Now, who would think of something amazing like that if you're only just warriors? If we were all warriors, we'll be a bunch of dumbass.
Yeah.
Because who's going to think for us?
Yeah.
Kill.
Exactly.
But we also have navigators, our own scholars, our healers. And what were they like? They knew the forest better than anybody. Now that takes skill. And that's one of the identity marker for it, right? We used to use sound for healing. Now, you know, you and I have uncles and aunties that have 7 pills they need to take in the morning.
This one, that was not a joke.
Right?
Yeah.
Back in the days, we didn't have the conditions now we have. And so our old medicine cannot fully work anymore, right?
Yeah.
Because we didn't have gouts. But you sound like you know someone with gouts. Yeah. So anyway, we didn't have those things. And so we didn't have a need for it, yeah? But nowadays, we've got a lot of that. Now we have to rely on the... So that's our identity marker. So if you watch the documentary, I do a lot of self-empowering.
Yeah.
To remind you, you are amazing.
I love that. That was so beautiful. And what a positive way to empower, because that's a conversation people had. How do you empower people? And everyone wants to be, you know, the empowering person. Yeah. But when it comes to the delivery,
let's tell Noah.
Yeah. when it comes to delivering an outcome that serves that, I think you've done it so perfectly. It's positive, it's impactful, it highlights on our people, our tangata Moana, and you're using our own people to tell the stories, and I think that's awesome. And I think whatever, you know, the funny...
Well, it's our story.
Yeah.
I should not use anybody else.
Well, no, but
you're right, because how many nature programs about us where you always hear the guy right here,
and here comes a wild Samoan
about to bite a Samoan.
Exactly. Yeah. So you've done it in such a beautiful way.
Thank you.
And talking about the individuals that were on that documentary, what was the selection process like? You know, what did you take in, or what did you prepare for?
First, I'd like to acknowledge all the elders and the knowledge holders of Vanuatu, the Solomon Islands, Tonga, Viti, the Cook Islands, Niue, and of course Samoa. My selection process was a very island way. And it's funny, you know, the people that funded this are probably hearing it for the first time. You know how you're supposed to do your research and then provide guaranteed who you're going to meet when you get there?
And provide reason why you've chosen this person?
Right. I had to do a lot of maneuverability to the point where to get them to say yes. But I knew as an islander who I need to talk to I will only meet when I land. But I couldn't explain that to a Palangi system.
How'd you get that through?
Well, I had to make connections with government people, where the only thing they offered was the approval for me to come into their country to film. And then I would somehow use that as, oh yeah, that's the knowledge holder. That fool knows nothing but books. You know?
That's so funny.
So
right?
I would deliberately book these trips to be 6 to 5 days. The filming would always only happen in the last 2 or 3 days. Because the first couple of days, I put my feet down on the ground and I do what villagers do. Do you know anybody that, right? Because here's the thing. A lot of people say, yeah, oh, so-and-so.
Yeah.
When you get there, they just do it for tourists, but they actually don't know how to use the thing. Right? Because, you know, when you're a Palangian or any kind of tourist, you would go there and you're not going there to get a PhD on how to play that thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't want to offend the brother by saying, do you really know how to play that?
Yeah. You just want to see something cool to show your family or whatever. Yeah, take that photo.
Look, love, it's a moving monkey, right? With a degree. Familiar. But that's what it is.
Yeah.
And so I'd get there, and that's what happens. And that's literally how we went through each island. So Fiji was a different case, because in Fiji, I found out through some networks that, for instance, they had a nose flute player, and he was the last living legend of Fiji, but he was also close to his 80s. The last video I saw of him, he was 72, and you can tell then uncle was already aging. So I started making connection with the Ministry of Itauke, who looks after the indigenous affairs of Fiji, and they were like, yeah, come on. But when I got there, I didn't get to meet the head of the department until nearly time to leave. And then they gave me permission. Me and the film crew had a 3-day turnaround. And I don't know about the Fiji. Most people who are not from Fiji, when I say Fiji, they say beautiful resorts. Yeah? I went to real Fiji that looks like the village I grew up in, where it was very village life. I went to an area called Korobo. Anyway, they told me to go see the man. And on their website, they used to have him as a living legend, right? I got there. The living legend has passed away for 2 years. And the central government ministry had no idea he passed, because they had him as a living legend. So I had to tell him, hey, you're a living legend? He stopped living a while back. Right? So I know it sounds funny, but this is the thing with our community. The main thing that I wanted to see, because Fijians play their nose flute lying down. Like no one else in the world do that. We sit up and play ours.
Why? Why do they lie
Fijians lie down and play theirs.
How come? Was there a reason? That you discovered?
It's everything centralized around the breathing, right? Manava or Manava or Mana, as the Maoris would call it. But according to the legend of the family, where our late uncle Kaveni Tamani comes from, the diaphragm for him, he's able to manipulate it better for the breathing to prolong the playing. So I wanted that, because every nose flute and Cook Islands, all we know is they have no stories of them like that.
Yeah.
It's always same, right? Niue and Cook Island and Tahiti have shorter ones. Samoa and Tonga and Fiji have longer. Actually, the Fijian one is probably the longest. It's some of them is too tall for you to fully utilize the holes to make notes. Also, the Fijian ones have extra holes that no one can explain why they exist. Right?
Yeah.
So I want to know that.
Yeah.
Why? Because you as a Fijian one day are going to come across an item in a museum.
Yeah.
You're going to have to tell your kids why that is. Right? That, yes, that item belongs in a museum, but just so you know, son, that function is this function is that.
Yeah.
So that was the whole idea. And that was the challenge. So I had to literally get into an island and then go look for people. And it worked out. Some of them would refuse. And so I would have to talk to them in Samoan. I'm not lying to you. We would get into everywhere we go. I would first do a full sanga. Yeah. I would tell you, asaling sugo le soy mo molamo no fatulo yo pa ia. if I know the name of the village. For example, we were in Korovo in a village called Anae. Yeah, Tulona Pa'i o Korovo. When you go to the Pacific tongue, you connect. Even though they don't understand exactly what you're saying, there's a frequency in our tongue that other Pacific just.
Yeah.
That's how the documentary was done. If I went there as a member of a New Zealand passport community, they would have treated me with curiosity the same way they've treated every filmmaker, every academic that went there to try and extract their knowledge. They only allowed me to take or to use their knowledge when they know that I'm a villager just like them, that I'm not there to extract like the other people beforehand who have written PhDs and never given the village anything, still going to this day. Which is why when you ask me about academia preserving knowledge of community, I have a little reservation on that, right? And nobody ever gives anything back to these villages. So that's how it was done, Pacific way. I could not do the coming here with my Palangi film crew, about to wow you and make you famous.
Yeah.
No, because I come from a village.
Yeah.
I know what those people used to do when they used to come to my village. So I'll be damned if I go like that to my fellow Solomon Islanders, my fellow Vanuatus. I'm not a colonizer.
Yeah.
So I must know my role and attend up like a son of the Moana.
That's so amazing. I'm inspired by that. I think people need to give Alpha more funding. I don't think a lot of people in the film Pacific industry can say that they can work on that. Not many. Like, I don't know many people who do it your way. And also your skill to write this down and then get it approved by these funders. And I'm understanding because we apply for funding all the time. And if they see something that's not their strategy of delivering a message, that's even worse because you're trying to explain cultural ways of making things happen to Palangi. So well done on that. That's
well, like I said,
awesome.
I acknowledge the people that helped me get, because what's the word? There's a few sayings that you know for well. No man is an island. It takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
If you want to go far, you go to, all of that. So they all played a role into bringing the vision that I had. So, but yeah, it's a tough one.
And it's on YouTube if you want to find it. So it's accessible for everyone. There's no gatekeeping. It's not behind a paywall, which I think is also amazing because I also know in the screen industry, if it's behind a paywall or under a subscription service, they're kind of like, oh yeah, well, more valuable. They think it's more valuable because you have to pay for it. This isn't my experience.
Well, yeah. I know, but I'm not a filmmaker.
Well, you made a documentary.
That doesn't make me a filmmaker. I'm somebody who tells stories using the medium of film. Yeah. So I don't play by the rules and the parameters of a filmmaking industry. And and again, don't hear what I'm not saying, but I'm not discrediting people who make a living out of that. But I'm not one of those people. I'm a storyteller. I'm a cultural revivalist in my own way. I'm not the expert in what I do. I'm just an expert in what I write and what I collect and what I gather. And as I collect and gather those, I then share it with other people who want to know. But by them learning it, it doesn't make them an expert. It just makes them holders of this new knowledge that they didn't have before. And I say that because the danger of a lot of us watching things, we become like, oh yeah, I've learned this now. Oh, have you heard the video of, oh, he's the man. No, they're not the man. They're a woman. They're just a man and a woman who you heard that story that's yay old from.
Like when people take facts only from what they know.
Well, unfortunately, that's the way of today's world. Because again, people are lazy to go and dig a little deeper. Fact find what you just read. Yeah. I know it sounds beautiful. It spoke to your soul. But the person who you're hearing it from is not the writer. Right? Why is that important? Intellectual property is everything. Story sovereignty is everything. Because when you take the word off the lips, you are forgetting. It's like the saying, no? Don't just enjoy the fruit. Make sure you understand the root.
In the whole documentary, what was the coolest thing that you learned? This could be personal, spiritual, anything.
Oh, everything.
Yeah.
Everything. I went to 7 islands, and they each had something, and that's one of the funny things. What's the best moment? I'm like, man, to tell you one moment, one of them would spear me, right? Because, hey, but how about our time together? Some of the greatest things that I've learned, first of all, memorable to me was Vanuatu. I went to Vanuatu looking for, and it was very ignorant of me. I went looking for instruments that were presents mostly from a what we now call a Polynesian existence. So I looked for the nose flute, right? Landed there, and yes, they had the lali, but then the uncle ran me through an entire plethora of mouth flutes. I've never heard them before.
Mm.
The ignorant Samoan in me just went, but I went crazy, like a kid, and just like a kid receiving something that you've been, that you see your friends have that you never thought you had. So he would make these flutes in front of me and would play it, and the melodies he would play were nearly the same melodies as the nose flute, but yet the nose flute was foreign to him.
Mm.
So we were exchanging,
Mm.
and my mind started going back to the days when we literally used to do that.
Mm.
Where I would come with my whatever, my fine mat, and I would exchange it with your right. Because one of the knowledge that we now know is, for instance, Tonga and Samoa. If there it was a possibility of where the nose flute would have been gifted from Tonga to Samoa, we didn't just gift the instruments. We also used to gift the maker and the person to teach that
I
group.
see.
Well, because if I just give you a stick and
Yeah.
you had no value to you, what are you going to do with it?
Exactly. Mm.
You're going to pick your nose with it, right? Value proposition.
Mm.
So, and then they would say, we'll come back and get him 3 moons from today, right? So, and that was the same thing, right? We didn't just gift someone, we literally showed them, because that's the respect we want. Because we never used to give things to other people that had no value.
Mm.
Because remember, that's a shame, no? Your name's on it.
Mm.
It's like giving you a female dog that cannot reproduce.
Mm.
People are gonna say, "Oh, that bloody dog was broke by that stupid fam," because that's how it was, no reputation of family.
Mm.
So when I met Edgar, he was blown away by the nose flute. I only took over one, and he showed me like 13. One of them was an acorn. The other one was this long. The other one was that long, and I'm like, "How beautiful is Moana?"
Mm.
All right, so that's one what. Then, so much so, I've got an entire episode dedicated to Vanuatu,
Mm.
the only island where one episode is for them,
Mm.
because I couldn't cover it all,
Yeah.
and it didn't make sense to any of the other stuff.
Mm.
And then I cannot forget the Solomon Islands, right? I mean, it's the land of the panpipes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, those brothers, what they do with that is just nothing short of magnificent.
Yeah.
Niue for me, I guess, because it was my first time to my ancestral home. And also funny because I took my daughter who plays the kilikihoa of the Niue nose flute, and a lot of Niueans don't know it anymore. So it's funny finding them looking, and you have these Samoans coming in celebrating the instrument of their forefathers.
Mm.
So yeah, Samoa for me was probably hard. A lot of it were just stories. There were no material culture.
Mm.
Tonga, of course, about the same.
Mm.
But the Cook Islands, I mean, Papa Mike Tavioni, I'm telling you, cool experiences. Papa Mike Tavioni was currently, very well-known artist, tohunga, but at the same time is a voyager, a lot of knowledge. So, I cannot put my hand on one good experience.
No, it sounds
They
like
were also memorable.
yeah, absolutely. Were there any like ethical dilemmas?
Yes. Yeah.
Mm.
One of the challenge of working, we didn't know this at the time, but one of the challenge of always working with Palangi organizations or what they call commercial organizations, even if they're non-profit by nature, organizations where we're created without us to start with, and where we were later added either as a token or as just the evolution. Maybe that Palangi woke up one day and felt, oh, we need some color here. Let's just add, some Maori or some Pacific Islanders. You'll always find challenge in two things. Challenge from our people who are already on those boards, who are brown by name, brown by heritage, but are very much white by mind frame.
Mm.
And you'll find they will always be the main gatekeeper to anything that you do, yeah? Because, you want to please the master, innit? Look, master, let me tell you about somebody. I know we from the same blood, but we not the same, master.
Yeah.
I'm bitter. House than his. Right? We discovered a lot of that. So what happened particularly with the instruments of the Moana is, and I want people to understand this. This is the first time I've sort of shared on it. When we came together with Sounds, we partnered with Moana, an agency who I'm a part of. We co-founded that to advocate for Tangata Moana creatives. And that advocacy is, if you're a musician, we'll help you register your song. If not, go register your songs, please, so you can own the copyright of it, right, and whatnot. And Moana were in charge of the cultural component to make sure that every story we do, it's culturally protected.
Right.
Like I shared with you.
Yes.
Those elders have agreed to share them with me. Yeah. And so we also inserted later on that we need to do a cultural launch. Why? Because in our culture, no matter what happens, before you begin a journey, the community come together, break bread, and wish that va'a well. Because Instruments of the Moana is a va'a. It's a va'a carrying hopes, stories, revitalization for, like I said, whether you're watching this from 2024, 2124, or 100 years from today.
Or from Pluto.
This boat is for you. So how do we make sure the boat is sailing? We give it our best blessing, no? Same before you left home. Darling, make sure you look after yourself. That's what community of us do. Right from there, it started to have challenges with Sounds. They brought on somebody who was the interim that did not see the value, who was more towards satisfying the law LAW than the law LORE of community. So what happened was they made the project very difficult to the point where they cut all the possible funding of promoting it. That's why you're not hearing it other than me sharing it. All right? So they literally extracted the goods from our community and ignore the cultural blessing that's supposed to come with it. That has been one of the biggest challenges for me. But what I'm happy with is we did end up having a launch. It was a very small one compared to the one we originally planned. But at least the community came and blessed it. Right? Because this is a first of its kind, Hana. Never have there been a documentary about our sounds.
Yes.
But this white organization who now have on their accolade, we produced a film with blah, 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 have absolutely cut off any promotion of the film other than uploading it onto their social media just to fill it. But I'll tell you this is probably the best product they've ever done.
Yeah.
They've never done a film before. They are a music organization. So they have no right to do film. But we did it because I had people who know how to do film.
Yes.
And the one opportunity we had to serve our community, they did what we all suspect Palangis would do. So when I said a year of discovery.
Yeah, that was it, one of them. What was the reason they gave you as to why they cut that funding?
Look, this is a conversation that is still ongoing, so I'll just stick to what I can tell you for our community to understand. And the lesson I'll tell this, if you get into a situation where you don't understand the contracts, get in touch with someone who does. Don't rush into signing anything, yeah? That's not what happened with us. What literally happened with us was there was a delay in time because there were some unforeseen circumstances in the people that I had on the team who, through personal grievances and through their own, it kind of helped delay the project. Unplanned, just, and so that kind of impacted the whole project altogether. What happened was the project was supposed to be due on July 30th, but I advised them earlier that we won't be able to meet the timeline. So we don't want any more money. I just want more time, right? But from there, they said, "Oh, this is going to look bad on the reputation of Sounds. We can't tell that to the ministry." Oh, well, I'll help you tell the ministry. But of course, they want to control that narrative.
Yeah.
So in their arrogance to meet the LAW, they pressured the stories to come out when they wanted, which we said no to.
Yeah.
This is why the documentary didn't come out until September 30th. Right? And because of that, they didn't put any effort into marketing it. But it's fine, because I have to look at what we've learned from it and not continually be upset by what happened.
Yeah.
Because, girl, I had a whole launch in my head, right? Because this is the first of its kind. This is for our people to come and celebrate. I'll tell you now, there are 2 generations of Pacific Islanders who have no idea about these instruments. So they had the right to be in the limelight, to see their stories be talked about. But it's fine, because the right people are slowly finding it. And also because I've always trusted the documentary is not for the generation of now.
Yes.
It's for the incoming. Why? My parents' generation, their cup is full. Can't give them anything new. Our generation, we're very busy trying to navigate TikTok.
Yep.
Right?
That's true.
We're in, right? The incoming haven't arrived yet.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping at their young age, instead of their mom playing them Teletubbies, just to keep them quiet, that I can just see it now in 21, 24, or 22, 24, that they put them to sleep or let them have their lunch by watching the nose flute.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, no, like, what you've gone through sounds definitely a lot of discovery, as we discussed earlier in this episode, but I'm so proud of you. And you're right, this is so huge for our people in regards to knowledge, and you're also setting an example for anyone else who wants to be in that industry of telling the stories of our people, how to do it, what the process looks like, and it's not an easy one. You need to have cultural literacy, and also if you're bringing what it looks like to be the person to tell these stories, because everyone wants to tell stories, but there's responsibility that comes with it. What are you looking for next year? Are you planning any other future documentaries?
Look, I think I kind of found myself in a way that other people are responding to. So I am currently continue writing revival, but this time it's to do with things like the trees, right? Because why is that? It was the healing, you know? Our clothing came from what? It was the only piece of clothing we ever had, from the bark of the mulberry tree. So, do you know much about the mulberry tree?
No.
I don't know much about it. But one of the things I've discovered is that a friend of mine shared, someone did a research and they found out, so every plant has a different strand in different islands. So the frangipani that's in Samoa is a different strand than the frangipani in Tahiti, so forth, everywhere. They found out that the mulberry tree is the exact same DNA in Samoa as the mulberry tree in Tahiti. It's the only plant in the entire Pacific that has that. Why? How? Right? And so I want to look at things like that. Like, what else did we use to cure? I grew up in a Samoan plant called Fuimaono. It was gross stuff. When a kid had a upset tummy, they'll make you drink this skunk green, right? It worked. So I want to know more about those. How did they get those knowledge? Where are those trees today? Right? Because like I said, I grew up in a house where we all know someone who's got I think we're the only culture that have pepa o kanga fuala'au, ako fuala'au, a bag of medicine. We have, and we've all seen that person, take a lot in a day. What was our cure before that? I know, like I said, we laugh about it, but gout, it's nothing new, because it comes with the consumption of meat, no? It comes with the elevation of your uric acid. So if uric acid elevation didn't exist back then, why? I want to know that. And I'm sure some other people want to know too, who currently are recipient, or their body is the house of gout.
I definitely want to know. Those are all interesting topics, and I like how they all stem back to the empowerment of our people. It's a thought that the topics that you're covering is the thought that leads to deeper thinking. So That's what I really enjoy about the what.
Deeper thinking, deeper appreciation of your culture.
Yeah.
Remember what I said about value proposition.
Yes.
Yeah. When the colonial cultures arrived, they brought them with them technologies.
Yeah.
And this is why, and I say this a lot because, I grew up in Samoa where we jokingly say to people, well, who did you marry? And the minute you say a name that's not Samoa, oh God, and there's a joke, yeah, for Omerikifi. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have murdered friends. I mean, that was so bad. That's like saying I've got a black friend.
Yeah.
But hopefully those Merediths and those Kyles and those Von Riek and those Schmidt, all of them understand what I'm trying to say. So the value proposition then became anybody who you married who was half caste. The elevation of that family just went up the line. But yet that dude probably has a Kyle last name, but has so much trauma. So what is he bringing into my house? Nothing but damaged goods, right? I mean, but that was the value proposition. Only because the first white man we met came with a sword that made me cut down a tree faster than an axe, right? He came with a funnel that allowed me to streamline water through a tap. Then the values changed. To this day still is. I went to Samoa school in the 80s. Right? They knew those of us that came from Kua. Kua is where anywhere that's nearly an hour from town. Whenever it was time to fussy the class, the teacher would always pick the Afkasi ones, move them to the side, and reserve the hiding for those of us with full Samoan names. Now that is our first-hand experience. So, I mean, you kind of like, man, when I grow up, I'm either going to marry Afkasi just to get back to them, or I'm going to show you what I made.
Yeah.
But the value proposition, it changed the way we thought about ourselves.
Yeah.
We put so much effort into English. We're the only ones who laugh at each other when we fob up. Have you ever heard an Italian and a Hispanic man speak English? Do they even laugh if someone else fobs up of the same culture? No. Only we. Value proposition. We laugh at Africans who cannot pronounce the word hippopotamus because we think the pronunciation comes with intelligence, no?
Yes. It's worse.
Value proposition. Some of our people are great at writing, but are just absolutely shocking and murder the language every time they open their mouth. But does that make them stupid? No. But do we think of them firsthand as smart? No. Why? They don't sound smart.
Yeah.
Value proposition. We can't have a full Samoan dinner without merele. What do we call merele? So merele for you is not Samoan. It's mean the good thing or the main. We never had main. What is a merele now? Merele or a main now, it has to be a mutton flap, the vessel of diabetes, heart attack, type 2, type 3, and gout, right? Ovimasima, those are merele. The minute you have dinner with just coconut cream and just breadfruit, you're poor. Value proposition. Guess who would live longer out of those two meals?
Yeah, exactly.
Value proposition.
Yeah, good question to ask ourselves. Where do we put our value?
It's yucky to drink the Fuimaono singer.
Yeah.
It's easier to drink 7 pills.
Yeah.
Value proposition.
I'm so done with you, man. But you're absolutely true.
Right?
You're absolutely right. And honestly, such an amazing watch. Go to YouTube and look up Instruments of the Moana and you will find it there. Thank you so much for coming onto our show, Alpha. I really appreciate it. I admire you so much. And I'm pretty sure I tell you this every time we cross paths, whether that be out in the community or here in our office. But thank you for coming onto our show and sharing your wealth of knowledge and wisdom with me, because I know, man, you could charge me for this, but you don't, because you're someone. Yeah.
That was not the memo. Should that guy was go? No.
Maybe you can charge him for it, yeah. But thank you for sharing all of this with us. This has been a great episode. It's been enjoyable for me. Do you have any last parting words?
No, well, I just want to acknowledge, yourself and Breaking Waves and Bluwave with what you guys continue to do. It's not an easy space, right? And I thank you for having the courage to continue to pursue. This is an industry, unfortunately, it's in a medium whereby, I grew up and people used to encourage you, keep an open mind. Well, unfortunately, this industry is now filled with people with closed mind and open mouths. So you have to be very, and to have the tenacity to still continue and learn, you know. And a lot of the people that would share whatever, we have no idea of the traumas they've gone through, and platforms are sometimes part of them spouting out results of that trauma that has nothing to do with you, but it just so happened to be in the same frequency and channel as they were flipping through the various different things. So good going, and I encourage you guys to keep at it. It's not easy, and you can only get better, right? And for yourself with everything that you went through, thank you to the communities that I don't own these stories. That's what people need to understand. I'm just a guy who was lucky enough to be blessed with it, to share it with the world. So thank you to the the Vanuatu community, both here and in Vanuatu, the Solomon Island community, the Tongan community, the Niuean community, the Cook Island community, the Fijian community, and the Samoan community. Story Sovereignty, by the way, the documentary, all the raw footage, this is the first time in the history of New Zealand filmmaking. I'm not a filmmaker, but let me just say it out there. We are giving back all the raw footage to each of the country where the filming was done.
Wow.
Free of charge. Why? New Zealand doesn't have the right to hold on to stories that are not theirs. You can hold on to the finished product.
Yeah.
Because that's what you paid for. But you've got no right to hold on to the raw footage of conversations between me and knowledge holders.
Yeah.
So that was the deal we made, and we're in the process. Hopefully next year, we're handing it over to the embassy of each of the islands here. Then they will store it in their own archives, so that if you live in Honiara, you don't have to fly to Alexander Turnbull Library in Wellington just to find out about your own ancestor. So that's also one of the groundbreaking thing of Instruments of the Moana. Every raw footage of interview that was held in each of the island is going back to the island.
I love that. Absolutely, you're pioneering in this industry.